Hey there, thanks for tuning in. This is DeProgram with Rall and Jamarl Thomas. It's Wednesday, August 5th, 2026. Not the regular show, it's the Q&A Ask Us Anything show, which we do Mondays and Wednesdays at 12 noon Eastern Time. You can also tune into the regular program live, 9 a.m. to 10 a.m., Monday through Friday. Please do that. We appreciate it. And of course, obviously, thanks for listening or watching anytime. If you have any questions, that's the main purpose here. Please go ahead and put them in the live chat on YouTube or Rumble, and we will get right to them as soon and quickly as we can. We're seeing some comments starting to trickle in. And in the meantime, JT, I have to admit, I am waiting with great trepidation the stupid op-eds that are going to come out in tomorrow's, legacy media. When about this political earthquake in Michigan. And then I'm also kind of wondering what exactly happened between an 11-point lead and a 1.5% victory in this race. I mean, something smells bad. I don't know.
Damning questions. Meaning, how did the polling get it so wrong? Now, the polling can say, well, and to be fair, it's very disconcerting. Like this idea of, okay, is it just, it's one thing to ask people who do they prefer, and asking somebody is different than who goes to the polls. Meaning, if you have let's say an abundance of young people that you're asking about Abdul El Said, and it's like, yeah, we love him. And then they don't show up to the polling, in which case there's a polling differential. I don't buy that, though. I think what I buy more than anything else, it was the political machine on the ground that was able to make up a severe gap between these two things, or somebody cheated. It has to be one or the other. Either the poll got it wrong, there was misdeeds taking place on the ground. There has to be one of those. It can't, it has to be some reason.
4 to 6 polling agencies, right? Different organizations, including Quinnipiac, which has a great record. Emerson, very solid. It's like, okay, maybe they the thing is they try to select for likely voters, right? I mean, that's one of the things that they're picking. They're not just picking like, hey, how do you feel? It's like, it's how do you feel? Have you voted in the last election? Did you vote in the one before that? They screened for things like that. I don't know. We'll see.
Wait, so what do you think? You think something
honestly, I know it's a little bit like sketchy to say this, but seriously,
no, I'm not taking it that way. Just to be clear, I'm not taking it that way. If that's your point of view, that's your point of view.
I don't know what happened. It's not like, oh, I know this. I'm just saying, no, it's what you said, right? Like it's either the pollsters got it wrong or the machine was, pulled out all the stops at the last moment.
Yeah.
And or there was cheating, right? It
has to be one. Something is off.
1, 2, or 3 of those things. By the way, just a quick little housekeeping thing. Producer Robbie West is going to try to join us, but he's been suffering from power outages out there in Montana. I don't know if that's related to the Washington State wildfires, which he has crazy orange skies out there because of that. But anyway, the point is the power is on and off, so obviously it makes it hard to join a podcast. We've got questions, so we should get into it because this is the Q&A show. All right, F you so. Thoughts? Thanks for the $1. Thanks on thoughts on Howard Zinn's People's History and Open Veins of Latin America by Eduardo Galeano.
Well, People's History of the United States blew my mind when I read it. Like, that was one of my gateway books of like, holy shit, we weren't taught this in school.
No.
It became that for me. The other book I haven't read, but Howard Zinn's People's History of the United States. The things that we did, it's so breathtaking. Like even the Columbus thing in and of itself, just at the very beginning of it, it's kind of a shocking thing as you're reading them, treating human beings in this way as basically commodities and having their own private little wars and all of this other stuff. It's just wild. Yeah, that book was a gateway for me.
That book's really important. I'm older than you, so for me, I already knew a lot of what was in there, not everything, of course.
Mhm.
And I remember talking to my mom about it. We both read it, and basically she and I both agreed that what made the book and still makes it so valuable is that it puts everything, all this perfidy, in one place, where you're kind of like you can obviously, if you have pattern recognition, you know that the U.S. is built on hegemony and empire and colonialism and slavery and brutality and invasion and cheating and lying and exploitation and all these terrible things. But when you see it all in chronological order in one place, you're just like, holy shit. And
Yeah.
so the scale of it is, all in one place is what, even though you might know every single thing in there, it's still useful
Yeah.
to see it that way. It's also useful when you're arguing with your friends who think that America is exceptionalist and exceptional, and you're sort of like you're like, here, let me go back to the source material, or let me just give you this book, and maybe you'll read this, and it's useful. I unfortunately have not read the other book. I have to admit I've never even heard of it, and it
Same.
sounds like it's something important. FUSO is one of our erudite posters. So I'm going to check that out. All right, Peter Ive. This is a $5 donation. Thank you, Peter. I never found black women attractive. My wife and I, both white, adopted a girl of mixed ancestry over 20 years ago. About 6 months later, I realized that black women had become much more attractive.
You know what's wild about that? I remember I depending upon the country that I jump into, I realized that I started to find women in each of the ones attractive. Like even when I was in Nepal, and I got to be honest with you, if you would have asked me if was I attracted to Nepali women, I usually probably would have said no. Well, when I left Nepal, I was like, these women are gorgeous,
Mm.
and it's I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just exposure.
Mm-hmm.
Like the moment that you're exposed to it, you can I guess see it clearer, see it for
You
what it
start to
is.
get it.
Yeah, I mean,
Start to
because
it
I
clicks.
loved the what do they call the sarongs,
Mm-hmm.
the traditional Nepali outfit. Oh God, I love that stuff. It was gorgeous
Those
on
were
them.
introduced by the Brits, right?
Yeah. Oh, was it? I didn't know that.
Yeah. So the sarong, which is we think of as quote
Indian
unquote
Nepali.
traditional South Asian thing. Yeah. Basically, when the British, the East India Company showed up in what became the Raj, they found a lot of topless Indian women. And the British authorities were really concerned that English soldiers would, thousands of miles away from home, would go native in every sense of the word and would end up, procreating with the locals.
Which
So
they did anyway.
so they had fashion designers in London gin up like sort of this exotic thing that they thought would work, and they introduced it to and made it mandatory for Indian women.
Cover
And
your tits.
yeah, cover your tits, cover your beautiful brown boobs, and
Well,
yeah.
it's worked. It's gorgeous. I love it. It's so elegant. And by the way, the same thing true. Like I mean, traditional outfits that many of these countries have. I found them elegant. I don't know. I don't know another word for it. It just works.
Yeah, no, I
But
mean,
I guess my point
it's
is, I get what the
cool.
person is saying. I get what they're saying.
Well, it's like my favorite Indian soup. India is mulligatawny soup, which is really again introduced by the Brits.
Uh,
Yeah. So
Mulligatawny. I didn't
yeah,
know that. It's
um,
wild.
yeah, it's not authentically Indian. FUSO, who would you prefer to honeypot you? A hot Russian, Chinese, Iranian, or Cuban spy? Hashtag racism.
Hat Russian. Russian
Uh,
women are
those
gorgeous.
those are those
Russian
are
women are
all
gorgeous.
difficult choices because they're all great. Um,
True, but I feel like I would probably get along more with the Russian, only because it's like when you peer in the abyss peers back. Like the fact that you're at a cold war with another country on some level means you guys are on the same wavelength on some level. Otherwise, you wouldn't even be in the same context to have that struggle. and they take on similarities. I mean, obviously they're different cultures, but I think they're similar enough to make that shit work. Meaning the jokes, the dark humor, the cynicism might be a little bit annoying, but you can.
Oh,
You
I
know,
can't get enough of that with Russians, male or
yeah.
female. Yeah, I love
But
that.
that's what I mean, right? Like I feel like I would get that with more so with the Russians. I don't have the experience with the Chinese, even though I know I cover a lot of Chinese stuff. I wouldn't preclude or proclaim to know them well enough. Well, I would know that, if that makes sense. I mean, I'm not trying to be racist. I used to work at a Russian radio station. I feel like I know them a little bit better.
Well, yeah, I mean, they're great. So I'm going to cross off the Chinese lady off the list because I spent a lot of time.
You're married, right?
Been there, done that. I'm going to cross off the Russians just because I've actually, I've dated some and they're great, but did that. I have to go with the Cuban because I've never been with the Cuban lady, and I have this fantasy. When I went to Havana, I remember seeing these like insanely beautiful like police officers who were like wearing like leather jackets, like, boobs sticking out like something out like of a pinup, from the 1930s, and I would just be like this. I insulted Castro. Arrest me.
Take me away.
Take me away. Beat me, please. I love you. I mean, yeah, I don't have much experience with Latinas, and it's like, it's kind of like, so for that reason, I got to go.
Oh, that's funny. That's hilarious.
The Iranian would be a close second, though, because I've also never been with an Iranian girl.
Iranian would be interesting.
That's not true, I have.
I wouldn't know what to expect with that, though. I just wouldn't know what to expect. I don't know. Like,
yeah, they're great.
I cover Iran, and I talk to Iranians, but there's a religious thing to it that I don't know how to frame it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, I don't think it would make much difference.
Do you remember I don't know if you used to watch Curb Your Enthusiasm. There's a Larry David episode where he is, I think he's dating an Iranian or something like that, and he's like, you must fuck him through a sheet. So you have to. He was like, I don't know what to do. We're going to have sex. So he was like, well, you must carve it on the sheet and you must stick your dick in the sheet and have sex with it between it. Now he's saying all of this from his Jewish friends, right?
Right. But they have that thing because that's what like Orthodox Jews do, right? Like they fuck their wives through a hole in a sheet when they have.
Oh, do they? Oh, that's funny as all hell.
Yeah.
God, man, the religious. I always feel, and I know they're going to say, well, I feel sorry for you because you're going to burn in hell. Oh, okay, fair enough. I always feel sorry in the sense that it's like you're putting such a restraint on life. Everything that is permissible is permissible. Everything that can happen. It's just is what it is. And they add this overlay to it of, well, we can't do this and we can't do that.
Right, for no particular reason.
No particular reason other than, well, God said this. And he's like, are you serious right now?
You don't know that. You're making up whatever God said.
You're making that shit up. And I think part of it is we feel dodgy about sex. And so all of this other stuff comes around from it. Like, meaning, look, I know for myself, and you said it yourself, there have been times after masturbation where I feel like, oh my God, you're an animal.
You just feel
filthy. You feel like gross. And I don't know why I feel that way.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
it's like you've done nothing wrong. And yet you feel
undignified. That's the word. You're just like, look at me. I mean, like this is so okay. I got a story like that. So, I used to work at the Japanese bank in the 80s. And I spent a lot of time in Tokyo as a result of that. So my friend and I, my colleague, he was also a white dude. We decided to treat our boss, because he was always taking us out and spending so much money on us. We were like, come on, it's not right. We got to take him out and show him on the top. Sorry?
That was culture, right? Like that was their thing.
Not really, because usually the culture is that the senior person always pays. And it's like kind of like, even if it's like, come on, you've taken me out 30 times, let me take you out once. It's kind of like, no.
Yes.
But he was a good guy. He was an unusual Japanese guy because he was from Hokkaido, and he was from that ethnically disadvantaged minority that lives up there, and they look a little different, and they're not like, so they basically get discriminated against. So he's like an unusual guy, right? And he was cool as shit, really brilliant. So we're like, come on, we're taking you out. So he's like, all right. So there's back then, I don't know if this is still true. When you walk on the streets in Tokyo, they have all the signs of the building, of what's inside the buildings on the outside of the building, like sort of like an outside building directory. So
Yes.
you'll be like, second floor is drugstore, third floor, you'll see on the sign, is shoe store, and like that, right? So there's a place called Fashion Health, which had a distinctive black on pink sign.
Mm-hmm.
That's a blowjob place. And Fashion
What?
Health.
Wait, say that again?
Blowjob. It's for oral sex. Only for oral sex. It's for oral sex. All over Tokyo. There were
Prostitution was legal? I didn't know prostitution was legal.
I don't think it was legal, but it happened. Fashion Health. Fashion Health. It's your blowjob emporium back in the late 80s. So it must be gone now, I would think. Because by now it would have taken over the world if it was still around. But anyway, the point is that, so we're like...
By the way, real quick, there's shops like that in Poland.
Oh, really?
Yes. When I was in Poland, there were shops like that in Poland. Don't ask me why I know.
So it's like, come on, let's treat our boss to a blowjob. So like, we're taking you to Fashion Health. And he's like, okay. So it's like, we're all drunk.
Let's treat our boss to a blowjob.
Yeah, we're treating him to a blowjob. 2:30 in the morning, we wander in. The place is packed. It looks like a dentist's office, right? Like there's like all these salarymen along in this lobby, in this small lobby, all reading the newspaper because this is the 80s, and they're all checking their watches to make sure they can get blown and then catch the last train home to their wives in the suburbs, right? But there's a woman with like in a restaurant with like a little dais and an appointment book. She's the maitre d', right? And so I'm like, oh, and we walk in and she's like, no gaijin, right? And I'm like, it's not for us, okay? Don't worry, racist, okay? It's for our Japanese friends. She's like, oh, okay, you be sure, right? I'm like, yeah. We're not interested. It's not for us. So there's no room even to sit down because all the seats are taken. So we're just talking, and like at one point I get this crazy case of the giggles, and I'm like whispering to my boss and my colleague. I go, look at all these guys, and we're all like looking at them. I promise this is pertinent to the story. I go, look at them. They're just sitting here waiting to get sucked. And we all started laughing at the indignity of it, right? Like it's just so like, it's like, what the fuck is wrong with us, right? Like as a sex, as a gender, that we're like willing to go to this place and wait in line and be like, oh my God, I've got to get sucked before I go. And like we spend hundreds of dollars for what? Like what is wrong with us? And so we got such a case of the giggles. We were getting so many dirty looks that we were like, let's get the fuck out of here. We just left. And that's that feeling, right? It's like, I mean, it's not like that after, having proper sex with a woman. It shouldn't be. I think it is like for some dudes. It's not like that.
Well, I never felt shameful after having proper sex.
Right. That's not shameful.
That's basic, yeah. But why is it not shameful? Like, that's the part that I miss, right?
Why
do I feel ashamed by myself? Like, literally in a room by myself. And this is not, even taking out.
No one else knows. No one else sees. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. And yet, proper sex, you feel like He-Man,
Yeah. Or you just feel really, for me, I just feel really relaxed. I'm like, there we go. All is well now.
Feel like more as a man. Just like, look at.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I always tell my friends. Like if they get like dumped by their girlfriends or their wives or whatever, I'm like go out. There's always that school of thought like, oh, I'm not ready to get laid. I have to like take time. Like absolutely not. Go out that night and try to get laid if you can. Like,
Knock off the
you will
first thing you can find.
you will restore your masculinity, right? You'll feel better. You'll feel less shitty about yourself, just by having had sex. Like with
Oh, that's
anyone,
funny.
it doesn't matter, right? At all. You
That's
know.
funny.
So,
That is hilarious. Yeah, I don't know. I don't psychology. I mean, people are driven by their needs. They
yeah,
needed to be sucked off.
it's true. Okay, here, let's do some more questions here. Let's see. Let's see that one we already have. Okay. John Park. God, why is this still coming up? Oh, here we go. John Park. Do you guys think the 32-hour work week will ever exist or
Yes.
work? Asking from a
Yes.
29-year-old. Well, it does exist in France.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. I mean, look, they're going to have to do something. I mean,
Yeah.
we have an incompetent government that has an inability to conform to environmental circumstances. The environmental circumstances, AI, automation, and every incentive in the world is going to push companies to get rid of drivers, to get rid of clerks, to get rid of people in general, and many of these things. And you got to do something. All of these people are going to lose their jobs otherwise. And so, what do you do as a pivot to a society? Do you institute a payer system where the government pays, where robots are somehow, I don't know, get earnings, in which case goes to the state, in which goes to people? You got to figure it out somehow. But that could institute the 32 work week. This is Professor Wolf's idea, as opposed to what are those checks calls? The payments that people would get from the state. Sarah Palin did it in Hawaii, where they were using gas revenue to give people stipends.
Not royalties, like the Alaska pipeline payments.
Yeah.
Alaskans used to get.
Yeah,
Dividends.
basically to pay people, because those people aren't necessarily needed in the workforce. Because otherwise, what are you going to do? Robots don't need
It's a
healthcare.
UBI, basically. Yeah.
UBI, that's it. Yeah. I mean, Richard Wolff was like, well, no, as opposed to UBI, people want to, still allow people to work if they want to work.
You can do both. I mean, there's no reason why. I mean, imagine if you say you got a check for $50,000 every year, right? It's not really enough to thrive. I mean, most people would still want to work, but I mean, it would really be nice to just have have there be a floor below which you're not going to fall.
Well, Richard Nixon's idea, the reverse income.
Yeah. Richard
Basically,
Nixon.
everybody has a floor regardless of the situation that takes place. I guess the question would be, could we afford it? I mean, if productivity went to a particular
a lot of money
place. Yeah. But it's the issue is productivity, right? By the way, this is the Star Trek argument. Like, if it's like, well, how do people in the Federation are able to do what they do? It's like, well, if you can create a situation where your society is very prosperous and that money is not being hoarded by the rich. Key point, right? Like, you can't have a trillionaire. You can't have billionaires in that case.
No.
But what you could do.
That's fine.
Yeah, but what you could do is put a stipend for each and every American when they were born that the government puts money into all throughout the course of their life at a certain amount. Which means that if your productivity goes to the roof, the amount of money that goes to each particular individual could go up higher. In which case, you may get to a point where people can effectively just live. They can work if they want to, but otherwise they can live.
I mean, look, we can afford it. You brought up the key point here, increases in productivity. I mean, in our society, increases in productivity always, almost exclusively devolve to the employer.
Yes.
And so we would have to recalibrate that so that workers shared in that. And if they did, then yeah, I think we could afford it. I mean, I'm not saying it would be cheap, but could we afford it? Yeah.
Well, cheap is not really the point at that point. How people live will be the point.
It would also generate a lot of economic activity. It would generate a lot of consumerism that doesn't exist now.
Yes, because those people will have money in order to spend. Actually, it would cause inflation. It could cause inflation if their productivity hasn't caught up with the demand that's going to take place.
Yeah, there would be adjustments for sure. Okay, here's a question thanks for the donation from Insight Vector. JT, what led you to try remote viewing? I was skeptical, but did a session a few weeks ago. The accuracy really blew my mind. We'll probably try again in a few weeks. And please explain what that is for people who don't know.
It does work. So to give a slight history, the Russians, and when the United States and the Russians were in the Cold War, the Soviet Union was doing all sorts of research in psychic activity. And the U.S., who intelligence were telling them that the Soviets were doing this was like, okay, we think this is bullshit, but since they're doing it, maybe we should try it too. Maybe we should set up a team. And so the government set up a team of remote viewers led by Ingo Swann. It wasn't called remote viewing at the time. It was basically whether or not psychic activity could work in the context of military operations, military affairs, in order to gather intelligence. Ingo Swann was a famous psychic at the time and worked with the US government on the program. And what they realized was, A, it does work. B, you can't block it and defend against it in any way that we could come up with. They would put him in a submarine. They would put him in a Faraday cage. They would put Ingo Swann all over the place. And yet he was still able to come up with results. He worked with the military to come up with a program to allow people to do it in a more structured way. So it's not rando psychics. It's intel and defining that intel as being true or false. Meaning this hazy stuff doesn't really apply. You have a target. You don't know what that target is. You're just given numbers in advance. And based on the numbers, you reach out with your mind to get information. You write that information down in a structured, patterned way as set up by the remote viewing protocols. And at the end of it, you're evaluated on accuracy of the information. So say, for example, I would say, all right, Ted, I'm doing a remote viewing session. Mm-hmm. I don't know what the target is you're giving me. What you're doing is saying, I'm going to put 5 random numbers or 8 random numbers on an envelope, and I'm going to put something in the envelope. The envelope could be a picture, a person, a place, a thing. It could be a question. It could be all sorts of things. I don't know what it is. Mm-hmm. I do my session, meaning I go meditate, and I go into a room. I may have a monitor with me or not that helps me with it, but all things being equal, I go into a room, and I go into space in order to try to reach out with my mind to get data. I write down my impressions, my thoughts, and you can pair it with the target. So meaning it's not like I'm just randomly saying shit. You would know if I'm right or wrong based upon whether or not it comports with the information that you wrote down in your envelope. So let's say if you put down Taj Mahal and I'm drawing arches and I'm talking about a building and I'm talking about a location of people who may be brown. I may say there's water. I may say, et cetera, et cetera. You compare it. I either got it right or got it wrong. And you can tell my accuracy based upon the results. And so the military did this for decades because people like Joe McMoneagle, Pat Price, all of these people were just astonishing at it, at how good it was. In fact, the CIA files were released on the remote viewing that was taking place. And then you get more exotic targets like Mars or the moon or, but that's remote viewing, but remote viewing always needs the ability to validate the end result of the information. And so if it's like, hey, what's on a UFO that was flying over so-and-so? It may be interesting, but there's no way to actually validate the information short of what you could see outside. But for example, Jupiter, when NASA was sending a probe out to space and they knew the probe was going to get there at a certain point. And so they had Ingo Swann do Jupiter. And Ingo Swann drew the planet. He said there were rings. And it was like, well, there are no rings in Jupiter until they got to Jupiter and found out Jupiter actually did have rings. Like, he nailed the shit. Mm-hmm. They're more exotic stuff with remote viewing, like alien bases, which is just fascinating. Every remote viewer that has been tasked with that has found those bases. And I mean military remote viewers, whether they were on Earth or on the moon. But again, that's more difficult because you need to be able to validate, and you can't really validate that. No, that's what it is. I've done plenty of targets myself. What got me into it, no bullshit, I told you I was very new agey, was I wanted a way to engage with what I call a guide directly and not in a halfway conscious state. Like, it's one thing to have a conversation with somebody and for one, you're in a state where you're just shocked and you're hyperventilating and you're talking to someone when you're kind of in this, oh my God, this feels like Wonderland state. It's another thing to do it from a conscious point of view where you're trying to reach out with your mind in order to make contact with stuff. I don't know. It's look, I know some people may be like, okay, this is nonsense. I promise you it works.
I'm kind of like leaning on the nonsense side. Yeah.
I promise you it works. You can do it yourself. You don't have to take my word for it.
All right.
I mean, it's not something where you have to be like, okay, I just have to take Jamarl what he's saying. No, you can do it. I mean,
No.
look, all of this stuff, whether it's remote viewing, out of body stuff, all that stuff, all of that stuff from my point of view was I want to try it to see whether or not there's a validity to it or not. I didn't take it as true or false.
Sure.
I just took it as something that needs to be validated. Each one of the things can be validated. You don't have to take my word for it. You can do a session. You can, in fact, no bullshit. Oftentimes, when the person first does the session, they're more accurate in the first go. And as they realize, holy shit, there's something to this, that's when they start fucking up.
All right.
I promise you it's true. Look, the first remote viewing session I did, I had my wife rip a page out of a magazine. Never saw the magazine, never saw it, anything. She put it in an envelope. She wrote numbers on it. And I remember writing, it tastes like metal. I wrote down the color yellow. I said it was a cup of some sort. And it was a trophy. First session. Mm-hmm. And then after the second session, I nailed it. The third, fourth, fifth, sixth, botched it all. Because at that point, okay, there's something happening with this. There's no way for me to know that. That thing could have been a spaceship. That thing could have been anything. You could say it's luck, but that's a hell of a...
I was just going to say, maybe it was luck, right? And that maybe the luck, maybe you're explaining away the bad luck at the end.
That's a hell of a bit of luck. That's a hell of a luck.
It's true, because it could be anything, right?
So. It could be anything. And the only thing I know are numbers. And by the way, as you do it more and more, even though you may miss a certain point, it will come back to you. The issue is the reason that you're missing is because you realize there's something there and your conscious mind is being more engaged into it. The whole point of the session is to get your conscious mind out of it. To basically, because what your conscious mind will do, I'll give you an example. I did a session where it ended up being a lighthouse. And I said, okay, there's water, there's some kind of energetics. Now, that one was hard for me to explain. The impression I got was light. Like there was something that was bright, something that was moving in this case. And so I put down like some kind of energetics. But the moment that you get that, let's say an impression of light, that's very clear. Because sometimes you get impressions that are just clear, where it's like, I know it's this. Sometimes that's wrong, but when it's right, it's right. And then your conscious mind says, hey, it's a rocket ship going to the moon. It's like, God damn it, don't do that. Your conscious mind will use any bit of information to try to intrude into the process, because from your conscious mind points of view, you shouldn't be getting anything. Right? From your conscious mind point of view, data is analyzed through the mind, through the consciousness, not through this other kind of soft impressions that you get from this other stuff. No, I'm not bullshitting you on this. You could do it. Anybody can do it.
All right. You are at. We've got a lot more to get to.
Douglas, I'm sorry, way too much information. Way too much there.
Douglas, I am not sold, but I'll think about it. Douglas Hobden, I have an important question for Jamarl. As a lover of sci-fi, have you ever read Alistair Reynolds' Revelation space books? Very interesting solution to the Fermi paradox.
That book is terrifying. That book is terrifying. Think of, God, man, we should do book reviews on this show. Those might be fun.
I'd be into that. Yeah.
There is... Alistair Reynolds created this universe. So it's not just one book, it's multiple books. And basically, the argument is that species only are allowed to go so far. Because at some distant point in the past, there was a great war. And it was ultimately decided that creatures of sorts will go out and destroy that life when it reaches a certain level of technological development. And so you have a humanity that is effectively stranded in the stars, like meaning they're like huddling in planets and stuff like that, because ultimately they're being wiped out. It's wild. I got to be honest, I'm not a huge fan of Reynolds. His stories are good. I'm often a sucker for ideas and a sucker for language, but the books are terrifying. The ones that I read were terrifying.
There was someone else asked, and I'm sorry I forgot who it was, but I'm sure they'll want their question answered. What's your favorite Star Trek series, and what's your favorite Star Trek film?
The Star Trek series is probably Deep Space Nine. The War won it for me. It's just they took 4 seasons to build up to a war, which means it was a build-up. It wasn't like, oh my God, they just ended up in a war because the the officer attacked the captain. No nonsense like that. It was literally the liberalism of the Federation that basically got the Federation into the war. I mean, this idea of expansion, and you can expand in anywhere, and all of this stuff. It's like, okay, well, no, it doesn't necessarily work that way. And we have alternate ideologies coming into contact. It was just well done. Especially, what is the episode with Cisco?
And the movies.
There's one called the Dias Cast, which is just sublimely good.
And which movie? I feel like the movies are far more the movies are problematic in Star Trek.
They're not great. I mean, the first Star Trek movie was relatively good. Oh, when Spock died. Oh, that killed me.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, the Wrath of Khan. Oh, that killed me.
I think the Wrath of Khan's the best one.
That just came out of nowhere, right? Like Spock goes.
It's also it's about the law of unintended consequences. The callback to Ricardo Montalban being abandoned on a planet. It's like, don't worry, everything's going to be good. You're all set. And you never came. Did you ever come and check? Ever?
Nope.
Ever?
Nope.
No, you forgot all about me.
Yeah, it was good. That one was good. That one was supremely good.
It's great.
It's like, I will always be your friend. Oh, yes. God, man, that movie is just heartbreaking.
That's
like
the
that
one.
Scene
that's the one. That it really is. If you watch only one, that's the one.
Yeah.
All right. Peruse. Hi, guys. Do you think that AIPAC's era is now over in the Democratic Party as a kingmaker? The result in Michigan looks scary close to me. So yes and no. Okay. So clearly they're not automatic kingmakers. Okay. Clearly. They just got destroyed. Now, that said, in a result that we kind of didn't pay much attention to, they did manage to keep Cori Bush from returning to office.
Yes, they did.
But they didn't spend that much money on it. It was kind of like $2 million. And, she and Cori Bush had a upward, battle to get back in there for a variety of reasons. So, they're winning. It used to be like they couldn't be defeated. Now they win some and they lose some. That's, and they lost big. So, nowadays, now going forward, if you're a Democratic candidate, AIPAC comes to you and says, hey, we'd like to help you out, assuming they even ask you. They may not even ask you. It may just be like, we just decided to do this, whether you like it or not. At that point, if you have a choice, you might say, well, you might look at the voters in your district or in your state and ask yourself, is that going to hurt me? Is that going to be toxic? Is it going to do me more harm than good? Certainly, if it was ever going to do you more harm than good, it was going to be in a state like Michigan,
right?
Right. And it did. I still think Haley Stevens would be the nominee right now if AIPAC hadn't gone into that race. So they're not kingmakers really, but they still have shit tons of money to throw around. They're still influential. They still make some knees quake, I think. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't think they're going to give up. It's obviously, at least in the Democratic Party, it is a scarlet letter. It's an albatross on some level. I guess the question becomes, how much of an albatross is it in context to the money that they can effectively leverage? 2 points is not a huge amount that they lost by. And that's in spite of the polling, meaning regardless of anything else, that money made up a gap. And as you pointed out, though, it's very possible that she could have won this race if it wasn't for AIPAC, or for that matter, the Democratic machinery dumping that much energy and weight behind her. But I guess the point is, from her point of view, dude, I only lost by 2 points. I was supposed to lose by 13.
They can take comfort in that, and AIPAC can look at it. Look, no one's ever going to hear about Haley Stevens ever again, right? Like, she's bye, like, but AIPAC is still with us, and they're going to be. They might conclude, our mistake was we should have spent $80 million, not 60,
or just not use it in Michigan.
Right. Yeah.
Meaning you might be successful in another state. Michigan was. And maybe from their point of view, it was a test case.
with Thomas Massey, they were successful.
They were successful. Yep.
Of course, it's different in the Republican Party.
Well, yeah, which means that they're still here. That means they're not going anywhere because they still have influence, at least in one major political branch. And let's be honest, in both.
Yeah.
I mean, the only reason we're talking about Saeed is because it was an anomaly. He was a long shot. I mean,
yeah, to me, this is the Sepoy Rebellion, right? Like the Sepoy Rebellion lost, but it showed that it demonstrated to people who were thinking about standing up to the English that it's possible and that you might be able to win in the future. That's important. I mean, now there's going to be candidacies that will happen that might not have happened otherwise. Like, oh, fuck, we're anti-Israel. We'll never get anywhere. AIPAC will come in and crush us. Like, look at Michigan. Not necessarily. That's the calculus. It's going to change the type of people who think about running.
Well, I think in the Democratic Party, the overwhelming majority of the party is against stuff that Israel, meaning the majority of the party, the mainstream Democratic position is what AIPAC is doing is a genocide. I'm sorry, what Israel is doing is a genocide.
Yeah.
Which means the candidates who come up, if they're coming up through Democratic ranks, are most likely going to take that position. At least that's my thought.
Yeah.
I could be wrong.
No, I agree with that.
I mean, you're going to get some bought ones who are AIPAC like Stevens, but I think you're going to get more of these challenges of Democrat who is against X, Democrat who's for it. And they fight it up. AIPAC is going to be.
You don't need to be scared of AIPAC quite as much as you used to be.
Exactly.
That's not a small thing. Yeah. Let's see. Douglas Chauvin says they'll just recalibrate and cheat more next time. Juan Don asks, where do they get this money, meaning AIPAC? Where do they get these millions?
Jewish donors or Zionists.
Yeah.
Zionist donors in the U.S. who are rich.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They contribute to the organization for Israel. It's basically a stalking horse for Israel, which is why it should be considered a, what is the thing that we had to sign?
Oh, a foreign agent.
Yeah.
Registered foreign agent.
That's what they are. I mean, it's not like they're fighting for America. They're fighting for Israel. The entire point of the agenda of AIPAC is Israel first.
Right. And the United States should be there to prop up Israel.
Yes. That's what they spend their money on. That's their policy.
Yeah. I mean, look, lots of other countries lobby in the United States. It's just that nobody does it really quite this much. I mean, and obviously Citizens United really made things crazy because they don't have to identify who they are, right? Like only 6% of AIPAC ads none of them say they're AIPAC. None of them say this sponsored by, what is it? The American Israel Political Action Committee. They say they all have innocuous names. And only 6% of those ads even say Congressman Haley Stevens stood up for Israel when it mattered. They're talking about completely unrelated things like factories or unemployment or whatever, healthcare. And so they're just putting their thumb on the scale. I mean, it's a Supreme Court ruling. It's the First Amendment. They're allowed to. I mean, it's horrible. I mean, the fact that the anonymity is the part that I hate. They should not be able to come up with bullshit names.
I mean, I don't think they should be able to dump that much money into our political system in general. I don't think any of these people should be able to do that.
Agreed.
Like it changes the system dynamic. Meaning, if I'm looking at the election and I say, okay, how many of these races are one would decide with the most cash? And the number is something like 90%, then why are we even having elections? Just choose. Like, we can get rid of the expense of the election. Just give it to the person with the most money. They're going to win 9 times out of 10 anyway. Like, meaning that's not a political system. That's something else. That's a false choice of sorts.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's outrageous. Like the fact that we look at that, we can see that, we know that's true. And they still are like, okay, well, our objective in this moment is to raise the most money, which is why I believe Haley Stevens took that money in the first place.
Yeah. Hey, I'm getting a correction here. Thank you, Victor Brown, for pointing this out. Lansing is the capital of Michigan, not Detroit. I thought it was like Massachusetts, one of the few states where the most important city in the
Yeah, it's the
city
capital.
is the capital. But no, Lansing is like New York. It's got a dumb state capital. But anyway, why did you choose to live in the U.S. and not France? I lived from 80 to 83 in France, 24 years overseas, back since '06.
Hmm.
Happy and unhappy about it. I'd be curious about why you're unhappy and happy about it. But um, look, I still could. I've often thought that I would retire to France, or that if things got too hot for me politically, I would move to France. It's always been. I have a little bit of property there. Nothing as exciting as Mondani has in Uganda. It's literally an ancient, like it's just a plot of land with a pile of rocks where a house used to be. But it's been in the family for hundreds of years, and I just pay the $4,000 a year in property taxes on it just to keep it in the family. It's for my mom, really.
That's very cool.
But anyway, I don't honestly, because it's the path of least resistance. I speak the language here. I know the culture here. I speak French, yes, but not like I speak English. All my business contacts are here. My friends are here. The people I care about are here. If I were to move there, particularly without my son, I think it would really be like hard to do that. If I didn't have any attachments, I gotta say I'd probably move to southern France, and live in a sort of average size village. I think it would be just great. I don't know if anyone would talk to me or I'd make friends with anyone, but I would, the quality of life is so much better. I've got to think things would work out. I know dudes who've done it, and it's been
That's so
great for
cool.
them.
Oh, that's so cool. Yeah, if I didn't have any attachments, I wouldn't be in the States.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, I got to be honest. If I hadn't gotten sick, I don't think I would have came back anytime soon.
FU So, thanks for the dollar book recommendation. A Renegade History of the United States. Thank you very much for that. I
Never heard
don't
that one.
never heard of
Renegade.
it. Yeah, thank you. I'll look into that. Let's see. Douglas Hobson. The U.S. has the worst government money can buy. Kilroy for Prez. It would be interesting to get Jamarl on Gladiodrome to talk to them about remote viewing. Seems like something up their alley. I'm about 15 minutes behind the live cast right now.
Gladiodrome. What's Gladiodrome?
I don't know. Sounds like a podcast, maybe.
Yeah, probably a podcast.
Yeah, that is landed gentry, says Mr. A. Lee. Yeah, I guess so. That's true.
That's very cool, though.
It's a dream. It's in Brittany. It's on a cliff, several hundred feet above the Atlantic Ocean.
Oh, that's so cool.
Wind blown, like nothing grows there because it's so like the air is so salty. That's why it's always been a poor place. It's very dramatic. And if I ever sold a if I came into a lot of money, I would turn it into a writer's retreat, and I just have like floor to ceiling, triple reinforced glass walls, and just have this dramatic view of the Atlantic Ocean where you can watch ships go by, whales. You can, the waves crash into
Yeah.
the rocks below. Watch the storms come in. But it has to be built the old fashioned way with stone, because the wind, 60, 80 mile an hour winds are like standard there. So,
Oh, that's so cool, Ted. That's so badass.
amazing. Yeah. My people came from tough places. Okay. So, the MR Charles. The issue is broader. With the ease of setting up new corporations, we'll all be chasing the paper trail, like, in terms of APAC and shit like that. Very, very, very true.
Yes.
Let's see here. Oh, okay. John Doe, any idea on what's going on in Sudan?
Actually, no. I haven't looked up. I got to be honest. I hadn't. Last time I talked to Houdain, we talked about something else. Unfortunately, no. I haven't necessarily looked at anything going on with Sudan.
I have
At
to call
least not over
I have a
last week.
Sudanese friend. I should call him.
Mm.
Fellow cartoonist. Yeah, he's very cool. Okay, what else do we have here? Sorry, we do not have Robbie today, so we have to go through the comments. We'll have Robbie back when his power is is Garak. Douglas Hobson said Garrick was the best Trek character. I did like.
Garrett was good. He was damn good as a character, like a spy. He was basically a spy. He was a
Mhm.
spook.
Doesn't that
Yeah, he
same
was good.
actor play another role in Star Trek? Like, there's a few places, right? Aren't there a few actors who played multiple roles in the Star Trek universe?
They are. Yeah. Don't ask me who they are, but I know they are.
Yeah. My
But
my
yeah,
ex-wife, she had this like insane affinity for faces, and like
uh,
so if she saw, so I remember one time, you'll love this. We're walking in the street, and she's like, "Oh, like that guy. He was a red shirt in Star Trek." I go, "You mean like one of the guys who just like gets killed immediately upon beaming down to the surface?" Yeah,
uh-huh.
and I go, and she goes, "Yeah." I go, "Get out of here! You don't remember?" And she's like we looked it up. It was true. So
And she just remembered it,
she
just
just
like that.
it's like, and I'm like, also, it's like that guy. He's 30 years older now, right? This was like, this was in the 80s
And she still remembered. That's amazing.
or 90s, I should say. Yeah, but
Wow.
she had that ability. I mean, she would be like, you'd watch a show, and she'd be like, oh, she could like IMDb that guy, like just from her, like, oh yeah, so he was in 30 something, and then he was like in the second season of The Sopranos. It's like crazy.
She has a deidetic memory?
Yeah,
Or
it was.
no,
Yeah,
I mean in
brain
general, she
master
did.
racist as Mr. Charles. It's true. Yeah,
Huh?
I
What is
remember her
racist?
face, but I need to. But I can't. I don't. I find faces coming out of context hard to deal with. Like if I see like my dry cleaner out on the street, I'm like, wait, you live at the dry cleaner? What are you doing out here? Like,
It's like you live there. Like that's
yeah,
your
you live there. You're in
home
that
in my life.
box.
Your job.
I put you in the dry cleaner box.
Yeah. That's funny. That is funny.
Okay. Oh, Spock's turtle. Doran also voiced several characters in Star Trek video games.
Oh, did he? I mean, because he never talked on the show.
Oh, good. Oh, thank you for putting this question back in here, my Fabs. I apologize that I missed it earlier, but I'm glad you brought it back up. Any idea why American identity is so fragile? What's one thing unique about the U.S.? There are other American countries with unique identity, but hard to find in the U.S.
I don't understand that one. There are other American countries.
I don't wonder if he means or she means like by American countries, like in the Americas, like in North and South America.
And that why is identity so fragile?
Yeah. Hmm.
I don't know what he means by fragile.
Well, what's
Is it
one
just
thing
that
that's unique about the U.S.? Well,
he
there's
said
no
what's
such thing as an ethnically American person, right?
yeah, I mean, but at a certain point, well, ethnically American, I guess is the buzzword.
Huh.
I mean, because we come from different places. I
Yeah,
mean, we don't come from different places, but you know what I mean.
I do know.
It's a melting pot. Yeah, it's a melting pot. So I don't think that stuff. I mean, it depends on what you mean by fragile. Do people defend it? Yes. Are people sensitive about it? Yes. But they're sensitive about it because, well, Native Americans were slaughtered, blacks were remorselessly mistreated, um, gays were castigated, but that took place also in Britain and other countries. So that's not necessarily.
Even crucified in not so long ago, right?
Yeah.
That
So
guy in
I mean,
Wyoming.
so all of these identities have been undermined in some way that has provoked, let's say, reactive responses in the defense of themselves. I mean, you can't always necessarily be pissed at somebody for being overly sensitive when they've been gone after for years. So I don't know if that's what you mean. That's the only thing I can think of. I mean, beyond that, but I think we're getting better at it, at least in some places.
Yeah, we're just super. I think that we have major cognitive dissonance, right? Because we're a country that we claim to we're a democracy, but we only have two parties. We believe in freedom, but we're very authoritarian. We believe in personal freedom for ourselves, but not for people in other countries. We think that better, that we have the best country in the world, when actually we fall short on so many basic metrics like child mortality, infant mortality, and you know, infrastructure,
Right.
education, so many levels. I think we have. I think it's a problem psychologically when people are something very different than either what they are, or what they think they are, or what they'd like to think they are, and that breaks people's brains.
Does it? I mean, I think it breaks their brains when they come in contradiction. When the contradiction is elucidated, meaning it's one thing to function in a blind space. From your point of view, there's a blind spot. You don't see it. So you're functioning under something that you believe is true. It's another thing to come in conflict with it, where you are confronted with it and say, oh my, I'll give you an example. When Malik and I were on air, I had a certain point of view of US foreign policy that was created just by the years I had been on the topic and at the radio station. And, Malik came in as a predominant Republican, as a traditional conservative.
Mm-hmm.
And he would hear me make an argument about something that the US is doing and saying, dude, this is true. This is what's taking place. He was like, oh man, I don't think the US would do that. And give it 6 months. And Malik was like, okay, you're right. Right? He's confronted with, okay, this is my view of us versus this is how we actually behave. And because you're dealing with foreign policy a lot at the radio station, you can't unsee it, right? You're stuck with the story that you're stuck with. And you're confronted with it. It breaks your brain if you don't necessarily want to deal with the reality of what you're dealing with. I think it's that. Like, for as long as you can function in the blind spot, you're good.
Which most Americans do all the time. I mean, look, we're Germans, man. It's the 30s. We're Germans. That's how it is. And we all want to think that we're good people, or at least not bad people. And maybe we are mostly good people, but our system's rotten to the core. And so, the truth is that we actually have a moral responsibility to the rest of the world to completely overturn that system and start from scratch. And we're not doing shit. We don't even have protests. I mean, think about, we seriously don't even have protests against this Middle Eastern war. None.
Look, like I told you, from my point of view, pain is the thing that gets people engaged. Short of that, people ultimately will go along with it.
Yeah.
I think people hand over responsibility to things that take place from the government. And it's like, well, I do my job. They need to do their job. And it's, that's nonsense. Politics is different than a regular job. It just is. There's a ideological component associated with it. But yeah, until we feel pain, I don't think we're going to care. I don't think anybody is going to get engaged.
That's true. I was kind of had some hope for 9/11 causing us to have a change there, but that did not happen. I think
it was only when we saw the coffins. Like, it was only when people started coming back dead. That's when people got engaged.
Right. Iraq woke us up.
Yeah.
A little bit. I think we should leave that there, if that's okay with you, Jamarl. And
Sure.
Thanks everyone for tuning in. We will be back at our regular time, 9 a.m. tomorrow, Eastern time, or just tune in anytime and stream it. We appreciate you. Thanks for tuning in. We appreciate all the support, the comments, the donations, etc. Bye, Jamarl. See you tomorrow morning.
Have a good one, man. Thank you.
Bye. And away we go.